Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and following the 3H's of the channel. In this video, it's all about the country of Mongolia. So, if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. Back in the 1970s, there was a film in production called Goviin Zereglee. After finishing up the movie, it's said that some of the cast went on vacation around the Gobi Desert. One day, in the scorching heat of the desert, they found a jur to drink tea at. Jurs are very common in the countryside, but this particular one was odd. It had no livestock. It's interesting because without livestock, people who live in the countryside simply cannot feed themselves. There simply was and is no jur that has no livestock. It didn't even have a dog to guard any sheep or goats. So they went into this jur, and it was said that there was a woman inside that was wearing an unusually exquisite deal. The woman happily made tea for the travelers, and some of the cast were thinking about how they're going to drink the hot tea on this scorching sunny day. Steam from the tea was evaporating in the air, but when they went to drink the tea was cold. The cast was very confused. After all, didn't they just see the woman making the tea in the pot? After drinking, they left. Everyone was puzzled at the experience. After going not too far away from the jur, one of the cast members decided to look back. The jur was gone. This simply was not possible. It had vanished into thin air. Not only that, all of those people that drank the tea died around the same time a few years later. It seemed that none of them lived that long after. This is my first time ever telling this story. This happened in Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, the capital city. It was 2015, and we were 12th graders. We decided to go hiking in the local mountain, Khan Bogod Mountain, and this is a protected area, but people are allowed and permitted to go hiking on a small designated hiking trail. It's pretty popular too. It was our autumn break, so the three of us just wanted to hang out and maybe get a bit of exercise. It was a cloudy, kind of gloomy day, but not too cold. There was a little bit of wind. There's a flat camping site with a couple of sunshades where people can rest and play around near the top. The hike there takes normally around an hour and a half to get there, which is where we decided to go. We brought food to eat and brought some beers, 'cause why not? Now, the weird stuff starts around halfway through the hike, where I first saw an apartment building. It was about 5 or 6 stories tall. It was orange colored, with its top floor windows reflecting light and everything. It just looked like a normal building. I could only see the top bit above the tree line. The tall pine trees are predominant here. You see, we have hiked there many times before and since, and never came across such a thing. I was surprised and told one of my friends, and sure enough, he could see it too, and described the exact details of it. The third friend was behind us, so a few minutes had passed, and the building went out of sight. To let our friend join us again, we waited for a bit, and when he caught up with us, we said, "Did you see the building? Strange, isn't it?" He replied with, "No, what are you guys talking about?" So me and my friend just thought, oh well, maybe he just didn't notice it. Alas, we arrived at the campsite about 30 minutes later. There, a bunch of people were shouting, playing, and having fun. As said before, this place is pretty popular on weekends. We wanted to get far from all the noise, so we camped pretty far out in the thick woods. We found a little clearing by a felled tree. We used the tree to sit on. We unpacked our stuff and started relaxing and smoking cigarettes. I have a picture here of the clearing that we camped at. This is only one of the ones I took, but the apartment building never crossed my mind as too strange to rush to the camera. I know, the mind works in weird ways. But continuing on, I had to go to the bathroom at some point. This was probably from all the water and coffee that I drank along the way, and of course, the guys decided to do the same. We turned our backs from each other and spread out a few meters away. Since we were all standing in a circle, we could see all around us. I was just staring at a bunch of trees, and then the third friend, who didn't see the building, suddenly whispers loudly to STFU. We stop making noise to hear what's up, and then we hear a bunch of branches. We heard them crackling and breaking far away, and then a loud thud. Still, with my thing hanging out, I didn't turn around right away in the direction of that sound, and then my two friends started talking. "Holy shit, do you see that?" The other went, "Yeah, what is that thing?" I quickly finished my business, and I asked them WTF was going on. They said that something black had just dropped down from a tall tree, like in an instant. He said that the thing had to be bigger than a fully grown horse. Trust me, Mongols know their horses. They further detailed the thing. It was hairy, and the thing ran, four-legged, into the woods, disappearing almost instantly. We estimated that it was about 30 to 40 meters away, but we weren't really sure of that thing since there were a couple of trees blocking the full-sight picture. Now, of course, I didn't see anything, but I did hear the noise. The next 30 minutes, we finished our food and beers, during which we talked about what that could have been, and we joked around, saying that maybe it was the almas, that maybe it smelled our cans of fish and grew interested. A little bit of explaining. Almas, in Mongolian, is like the Bigfoot of America or the Yeti of Tibet. A big, furry, sometimes ape-like creature with intelligence and cunning. There's a lot of tales in traditional folklore, so we decided to go back down, which there's two options. Go straight ahead, climb up some rocks, and follow a trail into more woods, or head back. So considering what we had just experienced, obviously we chose the latter, safer option. While on the hike back, we talked about that thing non-stop, and me and another friend thought it may have been something to do with the weird apartment building that we saw on the way up here. Finally, after another hour or something, we went down into the city and then headed home. Now, I've hiked there dozens of times since, but I never came across something like that ever again. I think the most exciting thing that's happened was a different friend of mine saw some deer one time. I've used Google Earth to I spy for anything remotely built with concrete, but nothing came up. Also, logically something like that deep in the woods, is impossible. A 6-story apartment building, water pipes and infrastructure, up a mountain. It may not be as scary or strange as some other stories, but I don't hear a lot from Mongolia, and this for sure happened. As you know, in Mongolia, a lot of stories that I would usually post on this channel generally don't get told on the internet. Instead, they come out in books, they come out in oral stories, sometimes they end up in PDFs that you can translate. So I really had to dig around for this, but I had heard of a demon or some similar entity in Mongolia called, I'm going to butcher this, the Zaya Tolgoi. This is normally known in Western Mongolia. Families pass down stories of a tall, emaciated figure with a face that seems to be distorted, blurred, or seems to be shifting constantly. This is commonly seen near old ruins, abandoned camps, and other places in Mongolia. It seems to follow travelers, sometimes silently, for hours on end, scaring the hell out of them, before disappearing without a sound or a trace. In fact, when I searched this up, Google told me that it just wasn't a thing, but I did manage to find some stuff about it. It's not usually mentioned in English, and it kind of comes from the regional Mongolian oral traditions, especially in the Khovd, Bayan Olgi, and the Uvs regions. It does, however, seem to share some similarities with a lot of Native American lore, with a lot of Asian lore, Japanese especially with its yokai, and here's a general description, more in-depth. A tall, emaciated, extremely thin, human-like figure. It's usually gray or very pale. There's a face that seems to ripple, or distorted, as I said. Basically, it changes shapes a lot. It's often associated with, like I said, abandoned camps, ruins, rocky hills, ridges, summits, and places like that. In Mongolian stories, it's often considered a wandering or hungry spirit. You may have heard of a hungry ghost before. So these following stories that I have are translated from Russian. Now, full disclosure, I did use ChatGPT and various other AI sources to translate these because I cannot read Russian. So, let's jump in. The first one I have was called The Face in the Ridge. In 2013, 3 geology students were mapping formations near Algikar Lake. The area is extremely quiet. It's so quiet sometimes that you can hear your own heartbeat. There are no towns, very few animals, nothing but the wind. As the day ended and the evening fell, one student noticed something. He pointed toward a ridge. There was a person, a tall person, unmoving. They were standing at the highest point, seemingly locked onto them. At first they assumed nothing of this. They assumed it was a herder returning home. But, as time went by, the figure continued to not move a single muscle, not even when the wind picked up. One of the students got a little weirded out by this, and they went and raised their binoculars. He immediately went quiet, saying, "The face. Its face is wrong." The others thought he was joking. He gave them the binoculars. They all saw the same thing. The face wasn't still. The eyes seemed to shift position. The mouth appeared and then smoothed away. The whole head seemed to ripple, as if it was underwater. For nearly an hour, the figure didn't move a muscle. It just stared down at them and their camp. Without the binoculars, it was too far away to really pick out any details, yet somehow they could still notice the smallest gestures. Eventually, the figure disappeared with the coming night. They relaxed, only for a moment, and then one student turned to the opposite ridge and screamed. The figure was standing over there now, much closer, and still very much unmoving. They heard no sounds, no footsteps. There wasn't even a path connecting the 2 ridges. At some point in the night, the thing disappeared again, and they didn't see it until morning. When the morning came, they climbed down both slopes. The soil was still soft from a recent rain, but they found no footsteps. Not even their own horses would go near the ridges where that thing was. Encounter 2. In 2004, a Kazakh herder in Bayan-Olgi was moving his livestock to avoid a storm. Traveling at night in these regions can be very dangerous, but storms move faster than any rider. So, he had to move quickly. As he crossed a shallow valley, he noticed that there was someone walking behind him. A tall figure, thin, with arms that hung just a little too long. At first thought, he felt relief. Another traveler meant safety. But whenever he stopped his horse, the figure stopped instantly. No hesitation, no shift in posture, just total stillness. He called out in Kazakh, "Come closer, you shouldn't travel alone." He received no answer. The figure simply kept its distance. It was always the same number of paces behind him. When lightning cracked across the sky, the valley lit up like it was day, and he could see the figure clearly, finally. It had a face, but no mouth, just smooth skin, stretching where a mouth should be. The herder panicked, whipping his horse hard. The animal bolted uphill, trembling beneath him. He didn't look back until he reached his winter home. When he finally turned, the figure stood on the crest of a hill, perfectly straight, lit just enough by the storm clouds behind it. He then blinked, and it was gone. Encounter 3. Sometime in the late 1980s, 3 Russian mountaineers were attempting a route Near Mount Sambagerev in Altai, night fell faster than expected and temperatures plummeted. They found an abandoned stone shelter. It was just 4 walls and a broken roof, but it was enough to block the wind. Around 2 a.m., one climber woke to the sound of stones shifting. At first he thought that the wind had knocked one of them free, but then came another noise. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling the shelter. He woke the others, and all 3 listened as something walked around them, dragging one foot just slightly, almost like it was injured. One climber peered through a gap. Outside, he saw a figure, tall and impossibly thin. It was walking slowly around the stone walls. He whispered to the others, "It's not wearing a coat." It made no sense. Night temperatures there dropped well below freezing. But that wasn't the worst part. The face. But it wasn't a face exactly. More like a smear, a blur, like a portrait where somebody had wiped the paint before it dried. The figure circled them 5 times. Then the sound simply stopped. Daylight came and revealed something even stranger. The ground outside was loose soil, perfect for footprints. The climber's own prints from earlier were very visible, but there were no prints around the shelter. None. As they told the local herders, one responded quietly, "As Zaya Tolgoi watches you 3 times, 5 times it chooses who to follow." None of the climbers asked what that meant. Story 4. In 2019, a Russian-Canadian motorcyclist camped between the Uvs and the Goviin province, one of the most isolated places on Earth. As the sun set, he cooked a small meal and noticed movement on a ridge. A man, a very tall man, standing deadly still. He wasn't sure how long it had been there, but he grabbed his binoculars. The figure didn't look right. The arms were too long, the shoulders too narrow, the posture very unnatural. What disturbed him most was the position. The figure wasn't standing on the ridge. It was standing a little in front of it. Its feet were not touching the ground. It bent forward at the waist in one smooth, impossible motion, as if peering down the slope directly at him. He tried flashing his light to signal some desperate attempt at communication. The figure reacted, not by moving, but by flattening, as if its entire body compressed into a thin sheet. Then it slid backward, disappearing behind the ridge, as if it was pulled back by invisible hands. He packed up and left immediately, driving through the night without stopping. Encounter 5. In the 1990s, a fisherman and his nephew camped near Kyrgyz Lake after their boat was damaged in a bad storm. The only shelter was an old stone ruin. Walls half collapsed, but it was enough to break the wind. Close to midnight, the nephew whispered, "Uncle, someone is looking at us." Through a narrow slit in the wall, a pale face stared in, but the head kept changing shape, stretching wider and then thinning, as though the skull was soft and shifting beneath the skin. The fisherman grabbed a lantern and rushed outside. The figure stepped back, illuminated just enough to see its form. It was taller than any person that he'd met. Its arms hung low. It had the skin the color of ash. When the lantern light touched its face, the features rearranged. The eyes slid, the cheekbones shifted, a mouth appeared and then melted away. The creature turned and walked into the darkness. No sound of footsteps, no movement in the dirt. The fisherman and his nephew slept outside by their fire, too afraid to return to the stone ruin. So it's clear that there is definitely some high strangeness and really terrifying stuff happening in Mongolia. If you've heard of anything coming from Mongolia, feel free to leave a comment below. If you have a story of your own, I have an email in the description below that you can send it to if you'd like to, or you can comment it and I'll try to get to it. If you enjoyed the video, then please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you wanted to go just a little bit further and donate to the channel, then I have a PayPal and a Patreon linked in the description below as well. And of course, here on YouTube, there is super thanks and memberships, as well as a new hype feature. I believe this feature is free, or it's free for so many a week. And I really appreciate everyone who's taken the time to hype one of my videos. It really, I can't even describe the difference it makes. It's just a really good feeling. Makes it feel like that we're all together in this and we're growing together. And with all of that, I think that I'll see you in the next one. I hope you enjoyed the videos this week, and I hope you'll stick around for next week. Thank you for watching, thank you for pulling up a stump, and have a good week.